Today in the office, we have in front of us the ASUS Chromebook Flip CM14, and this is a device we ran into out in Las Vegas at CES 2023. It was a bit of a surprise. It showed up like we went to MediaTek's booth and just happened to see it there, like, hey, what is this thing? And then ASUS happened to have it at their booth as well. And the gist here is super thin, super light, the new MediaTek Kompanio 520 processor inside, entry-level processor, but should get great battery life. So yeah, I'm excited to see it here in the office. Let's dive in the box. All right, so as I'm getting into this, you might notice one of a couple things. One, the background's very different. I'm going to get into that here in a second while we're getting into the box. But two, I'm going to try to be really brief here. So those two things go together. We normally would film in the studio, but there's like construction going on outside that studio. There's construction going on kind of right outside the wall. They're stripping paint off this wall. This room is not conducive for video because there are cars that go by and they're loud and we're kind of right on the road. But you know what? It's been almost a week and a half, 2 weeks trying to capture this video. And Joe came back from vacation and we're trying to kind of get back in the swing of getting a lot of hardware, reviews and unboxings out. And you know what? Sometimes you just got to make do. And so we're making do. So we're in a different spot here. I'm going to try to be brief here because there might be a lot of background noise. And if there is, I really do apologize, but we figured it would be better to go ahead and get this out with some background noise than to not get it out for another week until, some of this construction stops. So let's pop in the box here. Not shocking. The thing is lodged underneath there. There it comes. Regular ASUS brick. I would guess this is probably 30 watt. Yep, that is too small for me to read under this light. And here's the device. Let's see. Yep, standard stuff in there. Nothing out of the ordinary. And again, this thing is $279 all day, every day at Walmart right now. We'll obviously have a link in the description and in the post about this device. But as I saw in the Walmart posting, this is a completely different color and kind of a different look than the one we saw in Vegas. You can go back. I'll try to remember to make sure we have the video link from Vegas in the description as well. Okay, this makes a little more sense. So I don't know. Let's see if maybe you can pick up on some of these speckles here. It's kind of one of the things I liked a little bit about this device out in Vegas. We messed with the black one. It was black top, black bottom, but it had that like speckledness to it. I'm kind of trying to move this around, hoping it will pick up somewhere. But it's a really cool look, and it's almost got like a texture to it. But it was top and bottom out in Vegas, and I kind of liked it. Instead of, it's an entry-level Chromebook. We're not trying to make it out like it's some sort of luxury device. I kind of like that. This has all been smoothed out. It's definitely plastic, but it's a weird smooth plastic. Don't really care for that. And, kind of smoothed out on the inside too. So I'm kind of bummed about that just initially, because what I noticed as I turned it over to kind of show you the bottom, probably not going to be able to pick these up on camera either, but I've already got fingerprints all over that. And I literally just handled it enough to do this with it. So I don't love that. Because it doesn't feel great either. It's smooth plastic. And I'm like, this disguises this down here. It's got texture. It's got, some character. Kind of disguises it being a lower cost device. So yeah, that's kind of a bummer. Hopefully they're going to come out, because this is the model with 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of storage. When we talked to them in Vegas, they said there would be a model with 8 gigs and 128 gigs of storage. So hopefully the other one maybe is on the way. But let's talk through ports real quick while we're out here. We've got a Kensington lock, because that's what you want on lower end devices. USB Type-C port, USB Type-A, headphone microphone, micro SD. So nice ports on that side. And then over here we just have a single USB Type-C and tricky. So out in Vegas, one of the cool things about this device was I was like, man, for a low price, for $300, they said around $300, it had an included stowed USI stylus. This one does not, and they didn't really change the chassis too much here. They just put a plug in there. So that's where the stylus would be. It is not there. So power and volume rocker there. And you're starting to see how this thing is an MSRP of $279. You can imagine a Chromebook like this probably pretty easily during the holidays going on sale for probably under $200. So I'm trying not to be too critical here. You get a nice little lift of the hinge, and obviously it's a flip, so you're getting a flip design here, 16 by 9. 14-inch display. We'll look at it here in just a second, but relatively thin, as you can see here, and there's no fans, and it's not very heavy either. So again, I don't want to use a device this big in tablet mode on a regular basis, but this isn't bad. Like the feel of it closed up isn't terrible. And ultimately, you know, on the desk, it's got just a really nice form factor. Again, imagine this in all black with that speckled plastic all over it, and I'm like, it was really attractive out in Vegas. I really liked it. I'm gonna have to get logged in and stuff here in just a second. I can't remember. Let's see. Yeah, no backlighting on the keyboard, but keys feel pretty good. And let's see. Yeah, I recall this too. Like, I knew it was all plastic out in Vegas, but you know, it's pretty darn solid. You know, there's a tad bit of flex in the chassis there, but even if I wrench on it really good, it's barely moving. Again, you can build all plastic Chromebooks and not make them feel flimsy. So, you know, handling this does not feel bad. It doesn't feel lopsided. And again, part of that's because they went with plastic up here to kind of keep the weight down so it doesn't feel like it's overly top heavy. But yeah, that doesn't feel too bad. The hinge is nice and sturdy. Definitely not a, yeah, it's almost magneted together. Yeah, definitely not a one-handed lift. Let's look at this trackpad here. Smooth. Definitely plastic. Great click mechanism. So, and not a lot of flex either in the, a little bit there. Again, this is all plastic and it's a very affordable Chromebook. It's not a wild amount of flex in the chassis. And I bet if we set it down flat, yeah, there's even less. These little ergo lift things, not completely sold on them. Sometimes they lift up these weaker chassis up off the ground. Now you have space down here for it to flex versus it sitting flat on the ground and being a whole lot more sturdy. So it is what it is. I get it in devices that have fans, but this one doesn't. It's a MediaTek Kompanio 520 processor, so no fans needed. Just have some speaker grills, so we'll check those out here in just a second. I think that's all we're going to talk about. Let me get logged in. That'll give me a few seconds with the keyboard, and we'll take a look at the camera, speakers, and all that kind of stuff. All right, so going in and getting through all the login stuff, one thing I can tell you is that the keyboard is surprisingly good. So the keys are nice and clicky, pretty quiet, but the feedback on them is so good, like typing through just, you know, passwords and all that kind of stuff. Very good. So I do like the keyboard here, and that small amount of give in the keyboard frame doesn't really feel like it's a problem. I think this will be a very comfortable thing to type papers on, to do basic web browsing, no problem. The trackpad's kind of similar. The click's a little hollow feeling. It's all plastic, but overall for a device in this price range, not bad at all. And so I brought up a couple things here. First up is a little bit of video. Let's go right there. And I'm surprised at the speakers here. To building a great laptop for cloud gaming, ASUS actually ended up making a stellar Chromebook not
in
just super about loud
every category. So
but
let's take a deep
round. I mean, pretty good. For bottom firing speakers, I mean, there's nothing coming out of the side here. They're just on the bottom. Not too shabby. Again, it's not going to blow your mind, but they're not bad. A lot of times in sub 300 MSRP Chromebooks, the speakers are absolutely terrible. Like, you'd be better off listening on a phone or something. These are not too bad. And then let's take a look real quick at the camera. It is 720p, but it comes with a privacy shade. And the cool part here is the dynamic range is pretty good. Like, it's relatively dark back there behind Joe, and there's one light spotlight kind of right behind his head, and it's doing a good job exposing that scene. So, you know, webcams on these things are really built for, you know, web calls or video calls and that kind of stuff, like Zoom, Google Meet, that kind of thing. I think this will do really well with that kind of stuff. And so, you know, again, inside here, you've got a Kompanio 520, 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of storage. You can expand that with the SD card. And the last thing I want to talk to you about is mixing this pretty decent keyboard, pretty decent trackpad, pretty decent speakers, workable webcam with this pretty great screen. Actually, it's a 14-inch 16:9 1080p screen, but it looks like it hits about 300 nits. I think that's what they list it at, and it definitely is nice and bright. Obviously, it's got a glass outside part here. The actual panel is glass, so there's a little bit of glare going on. It's not an anti-glare screen, but at 300 nits, it feels plenty bright under kind of all this lighting here. Colors look really good. Viewing angles, hopefully you can see that as I kind of spin. Viewing angles look really nice. So ultimately, for $279, the question then comes down to, how's this thing perform? And I would say, just from a limited amount of use, okay. If you've used the Chromebook Duet, the original, it was a Kompanio 500, you're going to get a little bit better performance out of this. But let's look, just out of curiosity, I've really been kind of pushing it a little bit. Yeah, right now we're at 67% battery, and it's saying, it's installing stuff and kind of moving around and me kind of doing a bunch of stuff to get ready for, putting some stuff on camera here. And it's still showing it has got 6 hours left at 67%. So, that 8 to 10 hour battery of actual use is probably very realistic, maybe probably pushing on to 11 or 12. So the battery is going to be excellent in this. And if you're doing single things at a time, so let me just go to Chrome Unboxed here real quick. If you're doing single tasks, this type of Chromebook is going to exceed in that. And you can see the performance here. Obviously, we have ads on our site that run, and so some of that takes a toll. And pinch and zoom all works really nicely. And two-finger scrolling's all nice and smooth. Everything looks good here. Obviously, the minute you start doing a bunch of stuff, you're probably going to run into problems. But ultimately, for basic tasks, if you're doing stuff like social media, checking email, banking, those kind of things you would do with a Chromebook in this kind of price range, I think it's going to do pretty well for you. And then you can flip it around and use it in a couple different configurations, type on it pretty easily. And again, get this thing for under $300 every day, all the time, and likely on sale for a lot cheaper than that, likely as we move into the latter parts of 2023 and then past that, because Chromebooks go on sale all the time. So it's a compelling thing. I don't like some of the stuff they did with the outer shell here. I'm not a big fan of that. I wish they would have stuck with kind of the scratchy plastic. I liked it better. But overall, for $279, I think this is a good Chromebook for a lot of people. It's thin, it's light, it's going to have great battery life, and it's going to get by doing the things you kind of generally want to do on a Chromebook. But guys, that's it for this one. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, head down there, hit that subscribe button, and be sure to ring the notification icon if you'd like to be alerted when we make future videos just like this one. And there's some sound for you in the background. Till next time, we'll see you.